Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, Joe Slack, and joining me today are Andrew and Travis from Xplody Games. Xplody Games is an indie board game publisher run by Andrew and Travis that has just launched its first Kickstarter, Alynthia. As their day jobs, Andrew leads a team of designers and developers working with the top 1,000 retailers in the world, and Travis leads an engineering team developing aerospace software. Andrew and Travis, thanks so much for being here on the Board Game Binge.
Thanks for having us.
Excited to be here.
Awesome. So maybe you can start off by telling our viewers and listeners how the two of you got to know each other and what made you decide to want to design a board game together.
Yeah, so we met as friends, and we were just hanging out together one time when we started talking about how we would, if we came up with a group game, what we would do. And then that morphed into, well, what if we designed a board game? And we decided to start a Google Doc, jot down some ideas, and we were off to the races.
And it went terribly the first as the board game creation process usually does. So we were very excited about our idea and got it on the table with some paper and pen, and it was awful. But that's usually how it goes. So we were able to continue to refine things, and we're really excited with what we have now.
Yeah, that's often how it goes. You start off with an idea, you think in your head, oh, this is going to be the most amazing game, and then you actually try to play it. Oh, this just falls apart or not. So you definitely learn on the fly, and it's good that you don't give up right away, because it's very easy to get discouraged. But to say, okay, what can we do to make this better, and then get other people's feedback and other people's ideas. So that's all part of the creative process.
Yep. We have very patient wives too, who were willing to sit through some very long, grueling play tests as well.
And that's a good point too. Like it's maybe something you don't think of when you're first designing a game, but as you get more experience, you don't want to put people through hours and hours of agony if the game is clearly not working, or if there's problems. So hopefully as you're learning, you can say very quickly, okay, after a couple of rounds, okay, something's not working here. We got to go back to the drawing board and that type of thing. So because that'll hopefully encourage your playtesters to come back and not run from you next time.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Got to protect that resource.
Absolutely. And I love your company name. How did you come up with the name Xplody Games, and what does it mean to you?
So we actually debated pretty hotly about what we wanted to call ourselves when we first formed an LLC. I think it was me that came up with it, and I'd love to tell you that there's some awesome story to it. I just wanted something that was kind of fun sounding, a little bit like quirky, and I woke up one morning and I'm like, Xplody, that sounds fun. So that's what I pitched to Travis. And
Andrew's also a graphic designer by trade, so when he was smart enough to pitch me with a cute little logo, which was enough to convince me that it was the way to go. And yeah, I think our kind of goal is just to make things that are fun, and we just thought the name was fun, so we decided to run with it.
Very cool. So Andrew, so you did the graphic design for the logo. Did you also do the graphic design for all of the game as well?
Yes, I did. So I'm a graphic design. That's my background, with some web coding in there as well. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun to build all that out and refine it. So
I'm very thankful for Andrew, because if it was just me, then maybe Alynthia would be fun to play, but it certainly would not be very fun to look at. It would look like it was made by an engineer, I guess. But very thankful for Andrew and the skill set he brings. Even back in those early play tests, he would be, doing some simple art, and the graphic design especially, I think, has been what has helped so much, because so much of the playing experience is impacted by how easy components are to use, especially as our game evolved and became a little bit more intricate. So very thankful that we were able to collaborate, and I was able to take advantage of all his skills to pour into the game.
You're too
Yeah,
kind.
a few good points there. One being, the look and the feel of the game, a good kind of graphical user interface, and something appealing really will bring people in and want them to play it more and make it easier for them. But also that Andrew's bringing that aspect of it, which made the game easier. And when you're collaborating and creating with somebody else, it's really good to have complementary skills, where somebody's maybe stronger in one area, or is just more likely to say, let me take the lead on that kind of thing, and you're like, oh phew, okay, I don't have to worry about that. So how did you go about dividing up different tasks, and were there certain things that each of you said, yeah, that's really like what I want to do, that's my jam, let me kind of run with that?
Yeah, I feel like it really kind of happened naturally. Our skills are really complementary, with Travis with his software development backgrounds, really good at staying organized and like parsing all of the like vast amounts of data that we have between Google Docs, and then we take copious notes whenever we do playtests, and we have Excel sheets with like all kinds of different mechanics, making sure that everything is well balanced. So been really thankful for everything that Travis brings to the table with that. And then on my end, with the art and UI UX is a big passion of mine, and that's actually something that is directly related with this. And as you were saying, the look and feel, but also the way that comes together for the gamer is a big deal. So
I think also from a more like soft skill standpoint and personality, we complement each other well, because Andrew's much more realist, and he's also someone who can think really far in advance, think through things, whereas I'm much more, I tend to be a little bit more optimistic, and also I tend to be a little bit more intuitive in the way that I think through things, and kind of feeling out how the game is feeling versus thinking through like, okay, I think this is how it'll go. So I think both of those have helped us balance, where Andrew can kind of rapidly think through how will this mechanic maybe be played out, whereas I think I maybe brought a little bit more of the like, okay, how is this going to feel as a player? And Andrew had a lot of the realist, we got to be careful about XYZ, make sure we're all our bases are covered. Whereas I think I've been able to push us to take some leaps that Andrew as a perfectionist may not have wanted to go for, like that first public play test, submitting the game for the Boston Fig board game competition, and certain other thing, emailing for projects we love, and trying to jump at those opportunities that Andrew's prepared us for.
Yeah, it's really great when we find another collaborator who you really gel with, and your personalities work well, and you can push each other in different directions, to make it a better game, a better product as a result. And you mentioned Boston Fig. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your experience there. What is Boston Fig, and what was your experience submitting there?
Yeah, Boston Fig is this great board and video game competition and showcase in Boston. Surprisingly, it's every year you can submit a video of a board or video game. They have a judging process, and if you are selected, then you get a booth at the Boston Fig and Fest, where you can present your game, and judges will come around and judge, whether or not you get an award. So recently it's been virtual because of certain world events, but we were fortunate enough to go in person, and we were able to get a booth. Andrew pushed us to really deck out the booth, which I think was a great idea. We were able to get a lot of foot traffic, a lot of play testers, and a lot of people who were able to sign up who were interested. And we ended up winning best hobby game at the contest portion.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks.
So I know that your first game together, called Alynthia, is on Kickstarter right now. What's Alynthia about?
Do you want to take it, Andrew, or shall I?
You've got a great pitch. Go for it, man.
So Alynthia is a kingdom building, dragon battling game where 1 to 5 players cooperate or compete to fight back vicious swarms of dragons. So essentially, dragons have overrun the land, destroyed the cities of Alynthia, and built deadly nests atop their ruins. And you are banding together, either in the cooperative mode, you're banding together to fight back all the dragons, or in the competitive mode, you've decided that the only way to save Alynthia is for you to seize power and become its new ruler. So you are still trying to fight off the dragons, but all the while getting the people on your side so that you can become the ruler of Alynthia.
Very cool. And I know I played a prototype of Alynthia rather, a few months ago, and I really enjoyed it. And in fact, I backed it right away when it launched. What was your experience like creating your first game together, and what did you learn from it?
It's a long list.
Yeah. What didn't we learn? Oh goodness.
We could be here a while.
Yeah.
I feel like we learned tons really about the community, about what goes into actually like designing, playtesting. There's so many different aspects that are involved in the whole process, especially if you're self-publishing. Yeah, I don't even know where to start. That's a really long list.
I mean, I think a lot of the things that kind of big picture things that at least I think we've learned, just the board game design process of iterating, not changing too many things at a time, making sure that you're thinking about like what experience you're trying to create and not just whether or not the game is balanced, but trying to make moments that are exciting and enjoyable. Not understanding that the game won't be for everyone, understanding that ultimately doesn't matter how good the game is if people don't know about it and you don't have a community. That's something that I've been so thankful for, just the board game community in general, how supportive and encouraging and how much amazing feedback and critiques and all these things that we've gotten from the community and how supportive it's been. Even some of our more negative experience with playtesters ultimately, I think, made the game better, and taught us a lot. And yeah, so those are some of the things off the top of my head.
Yeah, those are some really important lessons. I mean, building up that audience and getting in front of people to make your game the best it can be, taking that feedback even when it's not a good experience.
Yes.
Sometimes people they say things for a reason,
Yeah.
and maybe that says you need to go back and look at your game a little bit more. And yeah, lots of great things that you learned in the process. So you also mentioned that Alynthia can be played solo, it can be played cooperatively and competitively. How does the game change between these different modes? And do you have a favorite mode that you enjoy playing the most?
Yeah, so the difference between the different modes is pretty minimal. The biggest difference is the objective. So in cooperative, as I mentioned, the goal is to defeat all the dragon nests. So you're working together to over 5 rounds to defeat all these nests by working together, taking simultaneous turns. In competitive mode, as I mentioned, you are trying to become the new ruler. And the way you do that is essentially by getting victory points, and whoever has the most victory points will win. Solo mode is essentially cooperative mode, but you're by yourself. And it scales for different player counts. I think the biggest difference is the whether or not you can attack other players. And in competitive mode, instead of taking simultaneous turns, you'll take these short 2 action turns. So, move and build, and then someone else will, buy a market card and move or things like that. So that can create a really interesting tension, especially since there are limited spaces on the board, there are limited cards available to you. So it makes it a lot more, the timing of when you do things is a lot more important. And in cooperative mode, there's a lot more collaboration. You're trying to share resources, coordinate your actions, and all the while you can be doing things simultaneously, so the rounds can move quickly.
Excellent. So Andrew, which is your favorite version to play?
Oh goodness. I do really enjoy both, but I'll say I think I tend to prefer cooperative a little bit more. I'm a bit too nice to want to like I don't like take that games very much. I prefer to to try to work peacefully with other players. I do play plenty of competitive games as well, but yeah, I prefer not to play take that esque games, which is interesting because that's actually where Alynthia largely started. But as we grew as gamers and designers, we wanted to do more that was less about take that and more about strategy. So
I think another thing about Andrew is he tends to, when he does something, he does it 100%. So if he does decide to go competitive and be aggressive, he does it 100%.
Look out, right?
Travis likes to call me extra. I definitely, yeah, I'm all in when I do something. So,
Yeah.
one of the things that we want to make sure with cooperative though is there's so many co-op games that are easy to quarterback in. Basically, say, all right, you do this, now you do this, now you do this. So we really fought hard against that when we were designing it. So with the simultaneous turns like Travis was talking about, it helps to prevent that because there's just too much going on to be able to manage every other player.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And Travis, is there a favorite version of yours to play?
I think it goes back and forth for me, but more recently, I think because we generally teach people with cooperative, I think competitive might be my favorite at the moment. Especially not as much the direct competition, since that's also not my favorite in board games, but the tension of back and forth and trying to figure out when to do things, I really like. And Andrew and I have had some tight games between the two of us in that mode.
Very nice. So I know Alynthia right now it's past the halfway point for funding. I think it's around 60% as we speak, around
Yep.
that mark. What has your experience running your first Kickstarter been so far?
Intense. Yeah, I don't know if you have initial thoughts, Andrew.
Well, as Travis said, he's the optimist. I'm the he said realist. I'll be honest and say I'm definitely the pessimist. For me, the glass is not only half empty, but it's evaporating as we speak. Um, so it's been terrifying, but it's been good. Definitely a growing process, and we've learned a lot even in this process too. But we've been so thankful for the community and the amount of support we've had. People that we don't know are reaching out and saying, "Hey, don't worry, things are actually looking pretty strong." Especially as indie gamers. So like we've been really excited about that, and really thankful for everyone in the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so since this is our first project and it's also not the cheapest game in the world, we didn't fund immediately, which was, obviously if you can fund immediately, that's the best way to fund. So it was emotionally a challenging process to see other big games from big publishers that come out and fund immediately, and to not be able to do that ourselves was tough. But we got some really, really great advice from the Outrun the Bear board game creator, who was incredibly encouraging, reaching out and basically saying, no, this is really tough, but keep on focusing on some actionable things. And he gave some really good advice, one of which was to engage and celebrate the people who've already backed the game. And so we've been really trying to do that we're making a community created card that we're going to, or maybe, we'll see if we can narrow it down to one card. But so we've been having a blast engaging with our people who are already excited about the game to add something to Alynthia together. But then also he gave us some practical tips about, other things to continue advertising, to reach out to people, podcasts or other avenues to spread the word and be engaged in the community. And those types of that type of advice and encouragement really means a lot from those who have gone through it before, because I'm so thankful that I have Andrew to collaborate with, and our wives have been incredibly supportive. They had a whole series of surprises through our launch day to try to keep our spirits up. But yeah, to be able to go through this process with other people is what makes it, not in absolutely draining, because it's definitely very intense.
Yeah, I think you hit on something there that a lot of people don't talk about, which is that support system. Whether it's the backers, the people that are there that want you to succeed, that are going to be your fans, they're going to help you get the word out, or spouses, family members, friends who are just there and encouraging you and say, yeah, you can make it, you can make it. I know this is your dream, and you will get there. And I mean, you're more than halfway, well past the halfway mark. You're on your way to funding it. Like you said, didn't fund on day one or day two. But there's nothing wrong with the first project taking a little bit longer to fund. Just the fact that you're on pace for it is fantastic, because not all games fund, especially first-time games. So I know you've done your due diligence and built up your audience and been doing all of the right things, like you said, getting on podcasts, trying to get through that mid-campaign slump, because it doesn't matter what campaign you are, how big you are, you're always going to have what they call the mid-campaign slump, which just basically means you're not getting as many people looking at your campaign or backing as you did at the start and the end. And that's just natural with anything. People are excited about something, they're going to either jump on board right away or jump on at their last opportunity to get on if they hold off, right? So you're going to have that lull in between, no matter what. But it is just a matter of, just keep going, try to get, one more person interested, get one more person looking at your campaign page. So what do you have planned for the rest of your campaign?
Yeah, so we've got several things coming up. So this wonderful podcast, of course. We also level up game board game podcast is we were able to send them a preview copy, and they are doing a podcast including Alynthia, talking about that. And we have a few other written, and we're continuing to line up other media and reviews. Besides that, in the campaign itself, we have, as I mentioned, we're working on developing a community created action card, and assuming we're able to get to some stretch goals, which we're really excited about. We'd love to be able to upgrade the game for people as well, so that we can give them the best Alynthia that we can.
That'd be amazing. Andrew, anything else to add?
Yeah, I think Travis hit on the big things. You're definitely really excited about some of the stretch goals that we're talking about. I can give a little preview. I've got a 3D printer, and whenever we're like working through things, we like to see if we can design something that is useful. But got this little guy here that may or may not make it into the game. So
a custom meeple.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, those are always cool additions. Well, let's hope. Let's cross our fingers.
Yeah.
That we not only fund, but get you to that stretch goal at the very least, because that would be really
That'd be
cool.
great.
So, looking back now, is there anything you do differently next time, or anything you would change if you could go back in time to before you launch?
I think the biggest thing that I probably wish we had done sooner, and this is again largely because I am a perfectionist and want to try to make it as good as possible before we start this process, but is start the marketing and building audience a little bit sooner than we did. I think we do have a really good game, and I'm really thankful for the people that have been with us for a while, but we haven't really done until somewhat recently, we haven't done a lot to try to build that audience. And I think if we had done more sooner, that really would have helped us, especially in the beginning parts of the campaign. But again, I've been really thankful for the industry veterans and different people that we have spoken with. We've gotten a lot of fantastic advice, which has really helped.
Yeah, I think there are a few like just nuts and bolts detail things that come to mind, one of which being making sure that our Kickstarter main image is optimized. We didn't spend quite as much. We were very focused on making sure the Kickstarter page itself was clean and polished, that we didn't spend quite as much time, I don't think, thinking about that, main image to try to draw people in scrolling through Kickstarter itself. I think getting on the Board Game Geek crowdfunding countdown, there were some things with making sure that the image was linked to the version properly, and that our short description was filled out properly. Just, some details like that I think could have helped. And then I think the other thing that comes to mind is just being more proactive and more thinking through the media of a campaign a little bit more, and trying to line those things up a little bit earlier, so that we're, not scrambling quite as much to get things set up throughout the campaign.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one of those biggest things is building that audience. And I don't think it's, well, I guess you could go too early, but in general, you can't start promoting your game too early and getting people, signing up for your email list, hitting that notification button on the Kickstarter page. The more you do that, the earlier you do that, the more time you give yourself to build up that audience. And it never seems to be enough time, though, to build
Yeah.
as much of an audience as you might like. But were there any other methods other than you mentioned, running some ads, going to Boston Fig? Were there other methods that you used to get the game in front of people and get them interested and get them signed up?
Yeah, I'd say by far the biggest thing for us has been conventions in terms of getting it in front of people. So we've been going to PAX Unplugged for the past, goodness, most of the years that it's been a thing. Sometimes virtually when we need to. But yeah, that's been really, really great for us. It's also pretty close to where we live, so that works out great. Just been trying to do whatever conventions that we can, and that's built up a lot of our email list and people that are interested. Another big thing for us has been Unpub, just the support and community from that, and then getting to meet other creators and various things there. That's been really great.
Mm-hmm. We also, we right after Boston Fig, certain world events made it more difficult to go to conventions. So we had a lot of great success transitioning Alynthia to be able to play test on Tabletopia, which has been a really great tool for us and something that has also been very useful to engage with people and go to virtual conventions. And we were able to do a few, Twitch streams and virtual reviews of the game, which helps a lot, especially with expensive prototypes and shorter timelines. Having a way to do a virtual experience of the game and still teach it and show it has been really great.
Yeah, even with playtesting, that's been really great.
Yeah.
If we have an idea that is more component based that we want to test out, we can do that with that kind of thing.
Mm.
Yeah, those virtual environments are great to test an idea very quickly. If it doesn't
Yeah.
work, just knock it out, add a new component very, very quick. You don't have to do a whole lot of printing and thinking about it. You just
Right.
try it out.
Fewer trips to Staples.
Yes. Very much so. So Travis and Andrew, is there anything that you brought from your day jobs into creating Alynthia or running your campaign that you found was particularly helpful?
Oh goodness, all of it on my end. So my background, like I said, is design and web coding, things like that. And really, I've used pretty much all of it. So a lot of what I do has to do with UI UX, which everything about a board game is that. It's all about user experience. It's all about making sure that the interface is intuitive and easy to use and is a good experience. And on top of that, yeah, just the management that I have with my team of bringing that organization and making sure that all the assets are where they need to be, have definitely really helped.
Yeah, I think some of that similar project management stuff from my end, but more specifically, I think I found it particularly useful. We use Jira for some of our project management, which is a task management tool if you're not familiar. But that's been super useful for me because it can be so easy, especially when we were like, all right, we think we're ready for Kickstarter. There are 1,000 things to do. Being able to name, prioritize, and gradually work through, all right, this week, what are the things that we're going to prioritize? Who's going to work on them? Are they done yet? Or this thing I don't care about, I'll put it in the backlog and come to it later, has really helped, I think, for us to not get so overwhelmed with the mountain of things that we know we should be doing. But once they're all listed, it's a lot easier to gradually work through those. Also, I love the dopamine hit from checking off an item in software. The other thing I think that my job has helped me with is just that problem solving, iterating, design, debugging process of being able to try things and think, think think through what an issue is and how to come up with a solution.
Yeah, I think it really goes to show that you can apply a lot of your stuff that you do from your day job or from your education and apply it to game design. And I think project management, and especially when you're doing your own game and you're going to be self-publishing it, is absolutely huge, because you've got all these tasks and it's very easy to look at it and be overwhelmed. But if you can break it down into bite-sized chunks and say, okay, this is what we need to do this week. This is what we need to do next week. These are all the things we need to do before we launch, and prioritize them, get them done, assign them to each other, to other people if you need to contract that out, and figure that out. I think it's such a huge part. And a lot of it is just being a project manager, being a very good project manager if you want to launch on time and do well.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, in wrapping up, do you want to give us a quick pitch for Alynthia and let everybody know where they can get their own copy?
Sure thing. Yeah, so Alynthia is a cooperative or competitive game where players are building their kingdom and fighting off vicious swarms of dragons. It has asymmetric player abilities, plays 1 to 5 players. Dragons swarm out on the board every round. If there's ever 5 or more dragons on the space, then they're going to swarm outwards and attack anything that they encounter, including you. You'll be moving around with your little player character, building outposts, upgrading them to unlock unique abilities. We have these cool little interlocking wooden pieces that we're going to have that you can upgrade your different player outposts. When you upgrade those outposts, you can unlock this abilities on a skill tree, so that you can go stronger through the game and ultimately be victorious. So yeah, it's on Kickstarter right now. If you search for Alynthia, then you can find us there. It's Alynthia. Did I spell that right, Andrew? I'm always paranoid when I say it out loud.
You did, and I was actually looking over your shoulder at one of the old game boxes to make sure.
Yeah,
the box right there too. So
I have a whole box of our current prototype and then all of our old prototypes.
Yeah. So if anybody who's watching this as well, you can see the game box over Travis' shoulder there for Alynthia. So I know I'm looking forward to playing it again and getting my own copy, and to getting this game funded, maybe even some stretch goals. So crossing fingers and looking forward to that. But Travis and Andrew, it's been great talking with you, and I want to say thanks so much for being part of the Board Game Binge.
Thank you so much,
Joe.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, guest hosted by Joe Slack, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our Instagram channel, Board Game Binge Podcast, and you'll get notifications of the live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. We can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.